My daughter was unconscious beside the front door when I got home. I still had one hand on my suitcase. I dropped it so hard the handle snapped against the floor. "Emily?" She didn't answer. I dropped to my knees and put my hand beneath her head. She was breathing. Barely. There was a bruise near her temple and red marks around one wrist. I yelled for my wife. She walked in from the kitchen holding a glass of water. She looked at Emily, then at me. "She'll wake up." I stared at her. "What happened?" "She was acting up." "What does that mean?" "I disciplined her." She said it like she was explaining why she'd taken away Emily's phone. My daughter was 16. She was lying unconscious on our hardwood floor. I called 911. My wife sighed. "You're overreacting." I looked at her. "My daughter can't wake up. She'll be fine." I didn't answer. I stayed beside Emily until the ambulance arrived. I'd been away for 4 days on a business trip. The night before, Emily had texted me asking me to bring home those chocolate-covered pretzels she liked from the airport. I'd told her I would. They were still inside my suitcase. I remember thinking about that while the dispatcher was asking me questions. It was such a normal thing, my daughter asking her dad for a snack, and now I was kneeling beside her, wondering if she was going to open her eyes. The paramedics came through the door. One knelt beside Emily. The other looked at me. "When did you find her?" "Less than 5 minutes ago." "Did you see her fall?" "No." My wife answered from behind me. "She fell." I turned. "You told me you disciplined her." "She fell afterward." The paramedic looked at her, then at the bruising around Emily's wrist. "Did someone restrain her?" "No," my wife said, too quickly. The paramedic didn't argue. He checked Emily's pupils, listened to her breathing, then carefully lifted her onto the stretcher. That's when he looked at my wife again. He stopped. Not for long, maybe 2 seconds, but I saw it. His eyes moved from her face to the scar on her left hand, then back to her face. "Sir," he said quietly, "can I speak with you outside?" I followed him onto the porch. He lowered his voice. "I need to ask you something." "Okay. Is that woman your wife?" I almost laughed. "Yes." He didn't. "I want you to be certain." I looked through the doorway. My wife was watching us. "Of course I'm certain." He took a breath. "I may have treated her before." "When?" "About 4 years ago." 4 years. That was the year my daughter's mother supposedly died. I looked at him. "What happened?" "A woman was found injured in a house nearby. She gave us a name." "What name?" He said my wife's name. My mouth went dry. "She had a little girl with her," he continued. I didn't move. The girl kept telling us the woman wasn't her mother. I felt my hand tighten around my phone. "What little girl?" He looked toward the ambulance. "Emily." For a few seconds I couldn't speak. Then he said, "The woman we treated was listed under a different identity." I looked back through the front door. My wife was gone. I stepped inside. The kitchen was empty. Then I heard the back door slam. I ran toward it. But she was already gone. And standing there with the back door swinging in the wind, I finally understood something I'd refused to consider for years. I might not have known the woman I'd married at all. I didn't chase her. Emily was being loaded into the ambulance, and that was the only thing I cared about. I followed them to the hospital. My wife's car was gone by the time I came back outside. At the hospital, they took Emily straight into the emergency department. I sat in the waiting room with my suitcase beside me. I still hadn't even taken my coat off. Then my phone buzzed. It was a text from Emily's number. "Dad, if Mom says I fell, she's lying." I stared at it. Another message came through. "There's something under the floor in my closet. Please don't tell her." I called. No answer. Of course, she was being treated. I sat there for another minute, then called my neighbor, Linda. "Linda, are you home?" "Yes. Why?" "I need you to do something for me." She heard my voice. "Is Emily okay?" "She's alive. She's at the hospital." There was a pause. "Tell me what you need." I asked her to go upstairs to Emily's room. There was a loose floorboard near the back of the closet. I had never noticed it. Apparently, Emily had. Linda called me 15 minutes later. "I found something." "What?" "A metal box." My stomach tightened. "Open it." I already did. "What's inside?" "Photographs." "Documents. 2 driver's licenses." "Whose?" She read the first name. It wasn't my wife's. Then she read the second. Different name. Same photograph. I asked her to photograph everything and send it to me. She did. Then she said, "There's a letter." "What does it say?" "It's addressed to you." I closed my eyes. "Read it." She hesitated. Then she started. "John, if you're reading this, she knows I've kept copies." "Who wrote it?" "Martha Hale." The name meant nothing to me. Not yet. The letter explained that Martha had discovered someone was using her identity. She confronted the person. Then she disappeared. But she hadn't died, She'd gone into hiding because she'd been threatened. Then Linda reached the last paragraph. Her voice changed. "What?" she said. "It says, she didn't marry you because she loved you. She married you because of what you owned." I couldn't answer. I looked down at my hands. I'd spent years thinking my wife had simply been difficult, controlling maybe, but I had never imagined anything like this. I called my attorney. He arrived at the hospital less than an hour later. I showed him the photographs. He studied the documents carefully. Then he looked at me. "Don't go home." I wasn't planning to. "Good." He pointed to the 2 driver's licenses. "Don't confront your wife. Don't call her. Don't tell her what you found." "Why?" "Because we don't know how far this goes." Before I could answer, a detective walked over. He had my wife's name written on a notepad. "We found her car." "Where?" 3 miles from here." "Is she inside?" "No." He looked at my attorney. "We found a second phone in the vehicle." My attorney asked, "Can we see it?" The detective nodded. The phone had dozens of messages. Most were ordinary. Then they found a conversation with someone saved as Randy. One message had been sent that morning. "He's coming home today." The reply said, "Then do it before he gets there." Another message appeared. "What about the girl?" The answer came back. "Make her cooperate." I read those words twice. My attorney took the phone from me. "There's more." He showed me another message. "If she tells him about Martha, we're finished." That was the moment I stopped thinking this had been a family argument. Whatever happened to Emily had been part of something planned. I went to Emily's room. She was awake. Her eyes opened when I walked in. "Dad? I'm here." She looked toward the door. "Where's Mom?" "She isn't here." Her shoulders relaxed. "Just a little." I sat beside her. "Emily, I need you to tell me something." She nodded. "Who is Martha?" Her eyes filled with tears. For several seconds, she didn't answer. Then she whispered, "She's my mother." I felt something drop inside me. "What?" "My real mother." I couldn't speak. Emily looked down at her hands. "She didn't die," I asked. "When did you see her?" 3 years ago." "Where?" "At a grocery store." I stared at her. She saw me too. "Then why didn't she come home?" Emily's voice became almost a whisper. "Because Mom told her you'd never believe her." I swallowed. "Why was she hiding?" Emily looked at me. "Because she knew what Mom had done." "What did she do?" "She stole her identity." I nodded slowly. "And then?" Emily looked toward the door. "She found out about your life insurance." I felt the room go still. Emily took a breath. "She told me you were supposed to die on one of your business trips." I stared at Emily. "What did you just say?" She wiped her eyes. "She told me you were going to die on a business trip." I wanted to tell her that couldn't be true. Then I remembered the messages on my wife's phone. "He's coming home today." "Then do it before he gets there." I asked Emily, "Did she ever tell you how?" She shook her head. "No. She just said something would happen." I sat back in the chair. For years, I'd traveled for work without giving it much thought. Flights, hotels, rental cars, late-night drives. I worried about missed meetings and delayed flights. I never imagined my own wife might be watching my schedule for a completely different reason. My attorney came into the room. I told him what Emily had said. He didn't look shocked. That bothered me. He handed me a folder. Inside was a copy of my life insurance policy. Behind it was a beneficiary change form. My wife's name was on it. So was my signature. I stared at the signature. "I didn't sign this." "I know," my attorney said. "How?" "The insurance company rejected it." He pointed to the date. 6 months earlier. I had been in Dallas, 3 days away. My wife had called me twice that week. I'd been in meetings and missed both calls. She'd told me later that she was dealing with a plumbing problem. I remembered saying, "I'm sorry I wasn't available." She'd replied, "Don't worry, I handled everything." I looked at the forged signature again. That sentence sounded very different now. My attorney said, "We're going to preserve every financial record before anyone has a chance to move anything." He contacted the bank and the insurance company. The police secured my house. A search warrant was issued. They found copies of my passport, copies of my business travel schedule, a second set of keys to my office, forged documents, bank records, and a notebook. The notebook bothered me more than anything else. It wasn't some elaborate secret diary. It was just a cheap spiral notebook, dates, flight numbers, hotel names, meetings, my trips, my life, reduced to a schedule. Some dates had little notes beside them. Too many people around, not enough time. Try next month. Then one entry made me stop. Flight delayed. Abort. I had been on that flight. It had been delayed for 6 hours because of weather. At the time, I'd been irritated. I'd never thought twice about it. Now I couldn't stop looking at that sentence. My attorney turned another page. There was an entry for the day I was supposed to return home from my most recent trip. Beside it were 4 words. Talk to girl first. I asked, what does that mean? Nobody answered. The police eventually traced the company connected to the financial transfers. It was called Hale Consulting. The name on the account belonged to a man I'd seen before. The man in the photograph Emily had given me. My wife's former business partner. The man I'd been told was dead. He wasn't. He was alive, and he had been moving money through accounts connected to my wife. The police arrested him first. 2 days later, they arrested my wife. She denied everything. She said Emily was confused. She said I was angry. She said the paramedic had mistaken her for someone else. Then investigators showed her the notebook. She stopped talking. The financial investigation took almost a year. We recovered some of the money, not all of it. The insurance company canceled the fraudulent beneficiary change. The forged documents became part of the criminal case, and the man my wife had claimed was dead eventually admitted he had been working with her. But there was one part I couldn't let go of. Martha. She had been hiding for years. My attorney eventually found her. When I met her, I recognized her immediately. She looked like the woman in the photograph. She sat across from me with both hands wrapped around a coffee cup. For a while, neither of us spoke. Then she said, "I'm sorry." I asked her, "Why didn't you come back?" She looked down. "Because she told me you'd never believe me." I said, "She was right." Martha nodded. "I know, that was hard to hear, but it was the truth." Martha told me she'd tried to contact Emily several times. My wife intercepted the messages. She controlled Emily's phone. She watched her mail. She made sure every conversation with me happened when she was nearby. And I'd been too busy trying to keep peace in my own house to notice what was happening right in front of me. Emily eventually moved in with Martha. At first, I wasn't sure how that would work. They had years to make up for. There were awkward dinners, long silences, questions nobody knew how to answer. Some days were good, some weren't. I stayed out of the middle. I figured they deserved the chance to rebuild that relationship without me trying to fix it. Emily and I had our own conversations. One night, months after everything ended, she came into my kitchen while I was making coffee. "Dad? Yeah? Are you mad at me?" I turned around. "Why would I be?" "Because I didn't tell you everything." I put the coffee down. "I should have listened sooner." She looked at me. "You believe me now?" "Yes." She nodded. "Good." That was it. No speech. No dramatic moment. Just my daughter finally knowing that I believed her. I sold the house afterward. I couldn't stand walking through that front door anymore. The place had too many memories attached to it. Some good, some I didn't want. I kept one thing from that house. A small bag of chocolate-covered pretzels. Well, not the actual pretzels. Those were long gone. But I kept the empty bag. Emily had asked me to bring them home. I'd bought them. And somehow, after everything, that little promise mattered to me. Because for years, I thought being a good father meant working hard, paying the bills, keeping the family together, and trusting the person beside me. I understand it differently now. Sometimes being a good father means noticing when your child stops talking. Sometimes it means asking the question that makes everybody uncomfortable. And sometimes it means admitting you were wrong. My wife wanted my money. She wanted my insurance. She wanted control over my life. She almost got all three. But she couldn't control what my daughter remembered. She couldn't erase the documents Emily saved. And once the truth finally came out, she couldn't put it back where it had been. I still think about that night sometimes. The suitcase on the floor. My daughter beside the door. My wife saying she'll wake up, and that paramedic looking at her like he'd seen a ghost. If he'd never recognized her, maybe I would have believed the lie again. Maybe I would have cleaned up the mess, taken Emily to the hospital, and gone back to the life I thought I had. But he did recognize her. And my daughter finally had the courage to tell me what she'd been carrying for years. I can't change the years I missed. I can't give Emily back the childhood she should have had. But I can do one thing. When my daughter calls, I answer. And I don't think I'll ever take that for granted again.